Oh, some bliss for you, pro. Some bliss for you. The
What's
Phoenix
that?
Suns, pro. Have you seen the big news out of Phoenix?
Oh, I think hot dog prices?
Correct. The $2 menu. The
As it
$2
should
menu.
be.
The $2 value menu. Welcome to Rogueburgers. Apologies for the miss last week. It was Christmas holiday / wasn't feeling too well, so Pro's already giving me shit about that. But Pro, the beautiful Boston Curtains are back. What's going on?
There we go. Yeah, I wish I could say it was good news that I was home, but I had a family friend pass away, guy named by the name of Peter DiGiulio. One of the all-time shit talkers of all time. Just like a quick rundown of the guy. He was a health teacher, like drug awareness in my town. My dad was an electrician for the Boston mob guy way back when in the north end of Boston. His dad ran a hardware store in the north end of Boston, so my dad would interact with him a lot. Then when I moved to the next town over from Boston, he was a health teacher. Every kid knew him. But ultimate shit talker. He was on David Letterman, did stupid human tricks, dove off a desk into a Dixie cup of water with a ring of fire around it. But the ultimate shit talker, just fucked with everybody. So here's a quick story. I went for my first high school job in 1996. The AU guy that I was working for got Rick Pitino to call when he was at Kentucky, fresh off a national championship. He calls the AD and says, Rick Pitino, Silvio Cella, the guy's name was. He says, Silvio Cella, this is Rick Pitino, Kentucky Wildcats. I want to call on behalf of Mike Procopio. The first words out of the guy's mouth, because this guy was a coach. This guy, Peter DiGiulio, was a coach for that school, like a assistant basketball coach and a track coach. The first words out of this fucking AD's mouth was, fuck you, DiGiulio. I don't have fucking time for your nonsense. And hangs up on Rick Pitino. This guy, Bogues, was unbelievable. Coached a JV basketball game. They had like phones on the scores table. These guys were getting fucking hacked to shit, and the refs wouldn't call it. The fucking kid gets up, fucking gets hacked. Same time the kid gets hacked and no call, the phone rings to test the phones at the scores table. He picks it up. The ref's running by him. He goes, it's for you. He goes, who is it? He said, it's the kid's lawyer. They're talking fucking lawsuit, so you better lawyer up for assault. But he passed away of a heart attack. And Bogues, I've never seen this before. In my town, I've been to this funeral home about 20 times for wakes and funerals. 2 hours straight, there were people. There must have been 3,000 or 4,000 people that went through this thing in 2 hours, to the point where the family had to go outside. They had to shut it off where families couldn't come in anymore because they only had like a 2.5 hour limit. And then they had to greet people outside that didn't get to see and pay their respects. But
Wow.
Long story short, that's where I'm here. But yeah, Peter DiGiulio, all-time character. Salute to you.
Rubbed off on you well then, I guess.
Without fucking question. Without question.
All right, let's get into some basketball. No more somber stuff. No more funeral talk, bro. Team of the week.
Yep.
Who you got this week?
I got the New York Knicks, Bogues. They're on a roll. They've been on a roll for a couple of weeks now. I think they've won, 6 in a row?
7 straight.
And
yep.
7 straight, I'm sorry. They've been playing really well. I got a chance to watch. I watched them the other night against Orlando. And, man, just after a sort of a not-so-great start, not as a terrible start, but not so great start. Now they're sort of, I think they're channeling in, they're using Towns effectively. Obviously, Brunson's doing his thing. Bridges wasn't on a great start. I think, OG's sort of playing his role. I think they're sort of getting back to the form of last year's playoffs. I mean, just good performance. Guys are playing hard. They're scrapping. They still have some injury issues with Mitchell Robinson and stuff coming back, but I think they're playing better as a unit. And again, the way they're using Towns now just to sort of spread the floor, he's rebounded his ass off. I just think they're playing well. And that's why I don't really get too high or too low on a team unless they really, unless it's a huge extreme thing, because you just got to give them time to sort of find their footing. And I think the Knicks are doing that right now.
Yeah, I think they're the biggest chance to beat Boston out of the East. I mean, Cleveland's balling. They just still get some disrespect from us all, including me.
Yeah.
I just don't see them as a conference legitimate chance to get to the finals. I don't know. I think they're a very good regular season team. But I hope I am proven wrong because it'd be a really cool journey. But I think the Knicks are the biggest threat to Boston, not Cleveland. I think Orlando's playing really good basketball as well. But I think that, the Towns thing, I mean, they have won that trade by a landmine. Like it's just crazy that that Minnesota gave that up to get Randall back, and that hasn't been a great fit. They're playing a little bit better now, Minnesota, but it hasn't been a great fit, and it's just been so seamless for New York. I think it's provided that space for Brunson to operate. You got shooting around it now with Bridges and whatnot, and they didn't give up that much. They gave up a guy that was hurt in the playoffs last season, and DiVincenzo was well liked, but he's a replaceable guy, right? So credit to the Knicks, that a move they had to make, took the risk, and it's worked out really well. And they've hidden Towns pretty well defensively, and it's back to that point of, can he just get from being a below average defender, just get to average for us? If he gets to average as a defender, they got a chance to get to the promised land. In my opinion, that's all you need. It's just we don't need you to be blocking 5 shots. We don't need you to be, But the stat that we had a couple of months ago of like 90% at the rim, that can't happen. If you can just tweak that a little bit, I think they'll, they got a really good chance of beating Boston. They're the one team I think is threatening.
Yeah, they are. And the thing about Thibodeau defensively, if you watch, I've watched him his whole career, from Houston Rockets assistant coach to, where he's in Boston, and then his head coaching stops in Chicago and, Minnesota and New York now. Just, the way that he can teach individually and get the best out of you. I mean, he's, not even to become a lockdown defender, but just sort of elevate your ability to, to force the opponent into the toughest possible shot without fouling, grinding it out. And I think that as the season goes on, I think you'll start to see a little bit of an improvement. I wouldn't say a total transformation, like you said, but just enough to be, just to be serviceable. And I think that you're not going to get a better teacher in the league than Tom Thibodeau, especially in the defensive end. So I think that's going to go up, but those guys just keep coming at you. Even guys like Miles McBride, Precious Achua, like those guys are just they're finding different ways to, even Cameron Payne is is given some, given some quality minutes to back up Brunson and do some things. So yeah, I expect those guys to be pretty good. And look, everybody gives Leon Rose shit about things. New York, the Knicks are just a team, how they operate. They don't really talk to the media. They're not really out there in the media like that. So like when Leon Rose doesn't talk to the media, there's always a problem. Everyone's saying he's hiding from somebody. It's just sort of how he does things. And like, look, they've done a good job. I mean, they've done a good job collectively, getting Brunson in free agency, making deals for, Bridges and OG, it just the Josh Hart. I mean, they're, the Towns deal. They've done a good job. They've done a good job drafting. They've done a pretty good job developing players. So yeah, I mean, the Knicks have been fun. I'm not saying that the '86 Celtics by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that they're doing good things. And look, all we're talking about is Boston. I think you're right. We don't really give Cleveland enough love sometimes, but I think now the Knicks can give a legitimate sort of team that could, go against Boston and see what, and challenge them in a series. Maybe push it to 6, maybe push it to 7, maybe win a series. Who knows? But for now, you know, 40 games into the season or 35 games into the season or whatever we're at, I think they're doing a good job, and yeah, they're pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I got OKC this week. They've been playing really good basketball. You know what's interesting, Pro? They don't count the NBA Cup. They did lose the NBA Cup, obviously. And a side note to that, the NBA Cup game was their only blowout loss of the season, Pro. So their next biggest, they lost by 16. Their next biggest loss beyond that was 11 to Golden State, which they were in that game late. So they've been really impressive, even with the way they're going about things. But the NBA doesn't count that loss as part of their streak, Pro. That's what's strange about it. I didn't realize that. So on the NBA standings, I think OKC's at, what are they, 10, I think, or something like that. Let me check. OKC is currently at 10 straight wins, Pro, but they lost an NBA Cup game. Because that's the 83rd game, Pro, I guess they don't count it. So that's a strange
Yeah,
one. I didn't realize.
a
But
lot of a lot of talk on that.
yeah,
We'll get into that later, but there's a lot of talk on that. But go ahead.
on that it
What's your
should,
assessment of the team?
I just think we knew they'd be up there. Their next step is, can they solidify that one seed into a conference finals? SGA, obviously the head of the snake there, but pretty well balanced. I mean, losing Chet Holmgren, they kind of haven't missed a step, which has been impressive. I mean, it just shows you how deep they are, how balanced. Hardenstein's been just a great acquisition for them. I mean, he's 12.6 and 12.8, 12.6 points, 12.8 rebounds a night with 3.7 assists. I mean, just great numbers. Blocking 2.6 shot. No, sorry, that's Chet. 1.1 shots a night. So they're just really well balanced. Jalen Williams is having a great year, 21 a night. And then you look at beyond those, their top three or top four, including Holmgren, who's hurt. They're just so well balanced. You got Dort with 9.8 points, Wiggins 8.7, Joe 8.2, Wallace 6.6, Williams at 6.2, all the way down to Caruso averaging just under 5.5. Super well balanced bench. They got multiple different lineups they can go to, and just they play a pretty good style of basketball. They can run, they can get out open floor. They can obviously go to the half court game with SGA, just so good in those pick and rolls and getting to those elbows and creating space and shooting that mid-range jumper. They've been fun to watch so far, and they're playing well.
Yeah, Bogues, they're sort of like a college, like a back in the day college team. They play together. It's really hard to find in the NBA now. And we talk about how well they're managed as far as Sam Presti setting the table with the culture of the team, the roster, the development of the team. Mark Diagonal doing a great job with putting everybody in position and just sort of keeping them organized. But just the players that they have and the way they support each other. You don't see that a lot in the NBA. You really don't. I mean, you see it in a few teams, but not many. And look, it starts with SGA, and Jalen Williams just sort of doing their thing offensively and keeping teams, keeping teams scrambling. And then, Chet Holmgren going out with injury, but like last year they were lacking just a little bit of size and strength in that front court. And I think the Hartenstein, pickup has been huge for them. But then the defensive guys, the Dorts, the Carusos, the Case and Wallaces, and just, they just keep on throwing waves of players at you. They don't really come out at you statistically. Like they're not shooting 43% as a team from three. They're not killing you with threes. They're not explosive like that. They beat you. They move the ball. They put you in situations. They spread you out. They drive you. They do all these things, but they play hard with energy, with focus. And you just don't see that in the NBA a lot. We'll talk about the Sacramento Kings, but they don't have this dysfunctional team. Even as talented as they are, we see talented teams all the time that just have dysfunctional guys that have like three guys in the roster always just trying to go 18 dribble, step back, contested jumper time and time again. These guys move the ball. They play for each other. They know what they can do. They know what they can't do. And again, they're doing all this without Holmgren. When Holmgren went out with that injury, everyone was expecting the worst at Oklahoma City. Dropped down to 3, dropped down to 4, and they've really pushed they pushed the pedal without him in the lineup. I mean, that's tough. Everybody's like, sighing a little relief that he was going to be out for a while, and now they just fucking punish people. It's pretty cool to watch. I like the whole deal, the way they assembled their roster and sort of put everything in check. The coach, the development, everything's sort of cool to watch. Small market. So yeah, they've been pretty cool. They've been pretty fun to watch.
It's pretty rare to see as well a young team like that actually not have those issues. So credit to OKC. We know they run a tight ship. I think
no doubt.
We interviewed someone with the Sydney Kings that was involved with OKC Pro. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast, but when he interviewed with us for a head coaching spot, the Sydney Kings, they disable all his swipe cards during the interview process. So like when you're interviewing for another job, you can't get into the facility for that day. You can't get into any of your your hard drives, your databases, like they go like next level shit. Like, and then until you've committed that you're not going to take that job, then you get all access back. So they basically delete you off the face of the earth, and they run a tight ship, man. So those young guys, there's no surprise as to why those young guys have stayed the course. There's not a lot of bitching or infighting. I want to be the man. This is my team. That's my team. They've held it together pretty well.
Yeah, it's like the CIA. It really is. It's just that's how they run it.
Yeah,
like there's no leaking that goes on there. Nobody's just doing their own thing. And that's the toughest part about the NBA, folks, because everybody talks about it. Everybody's got the signs in their locker room about culture and this is how we're going to do things until there's a time where there's an actual adversity happens, and then everybody just sort of like splinters. Everything scatters. Everything's forgotten. What they do is they do what most teams don't. They hold the line. It doesn't matter, how good you are as a player. If you think you're above the logo, if you think that you're above the team, they're going to get rid of you. If you're a staff member that's going to just do their own thing and think you're better than people or not work or not come up to expectation, they'll get rid of you. If you're a player that doesn't respect the process of being a pro, they'll get rid of you. And that's just how they are and how they evaluate players. They want players that could impact winning, that could support each other, have an actual skill that they could develop to actually impact winning. And that's what they want. And just the way that, look, they don't hit on every draft pick or every free agent pickup, but they hit on about 90% of it. They're well thought out. They don't take any shit from anybody, and they just keep moving on. And again, they're like the CIA, J. Edgar Hoover stuff. That's just what they are. And look, people want to make fun of it sometimes, but it's true. And they don't beat their chest like some other organizations about like their culture and things. They just have it and they keep it. And it doesn't matter if they get punched in the mouth or not. They had to reshape this team like 3 times in the last decade. Remember, they moved on from, Harden, Westbrook, Durant. Then they tried the whole Paul George deal, Chris Paul, George. They moved on from that.
Mellow,
everybody thought that, and now they just they traded Paul George when he was at his highest, height. They got rid of Paul. They got all these draft picks. Teams get all these draft picks and they still don't know what to do with them. These guys get all these draft picks and then turn those draft picks into players that they either acquired through draft or trade, and they just do a great job, man. I mean, I tend not to go rah Cisco bar about some people or teams, but you got to give them credit, and they're a juggernaut. And the only thing stopping them is Boston right now. Like right now, they might fall into some bad luck like they did last time when they had Durant and those guys, and they had to face Miami. And they had to get past them, and then they had some, other good teams, San Antonio's, was still around and some things. So Boston, that's the only problem for them is Boston's probably going to be really dominant for the next 4 to 6 years. I don't know if they'll win championships in all those 4 to 6, but that's the only thing that's really stopping them, because I don't think there's really a team in the West that could fuck with them right now. They're on all cylinders. They might get them a little unlucky stuff like injury or whatnot, but I just think that they're really doing the right things and they're pushing the pedal to the metal with it.
Yeah, they're going to be good for a while. They got some good young pieces.
Yeah.
They're going to be good for the next 4, 5, 6 years. My weak team this week, Pro, I'll go first. Phoenix Suns. I had them last week as well on the show. We didn't do I had them on the run sheet until we didn't do the show.
Yeah,
but I just so inconsistent. They just can't get any flow. You look at. Let's circle back to their last 10 games. They get 2 wins against Golden State and San Antonio, lose 3 straight. At New Orleans, horrible loss. At Miami, at Orlando. Then they beat Utah and Portland, just beat Portland and just beat Utah. You get 2 straight. Then they lose to Indiana, Detroit, Denver. Then they get a good win against Denver. Then they lose to Dallas and Golden State, which, tough losses, those 2. But just inconsistent. They started off really well. They were first in the West for a long, long time starting the season. It's the usual suspects for them. Their stat sheet. You got Durant averaging 27, Booker 25, 19 for Beal. Health has been an issue. And now a suspension is going to be the issue, Pro. So for those not familiar, Yusuf Nurkic with an open hand bitch slap to Najee Marshall. Najee Marshall winds up and bops him back. I find it weird, Pro, that Najee Marshall got more games than Nurkic. I don't know what you think about that, but Najee got 4 games and Nurkic got 3. Is it because it was an open hand versus a fist? But I think if you're the instigator, you throw the first one and it connects, open hand or not, you should surely get an extra game or two than the guy that retaliated. I hate the retaliator getting, and I get it, you can't retaliate and all that bullshit, but and then they're giving PJ Washington another one game because he was a third man in, trying to reinstigate it when it kind of slowed down. But not a good time for the Suns. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Bogues, I mean, you got to be consistent. It doesn't matter about injury. It doesn't matter about what's going on. You got to really step up, especially if you're going to be a championship contended team. Look, you got 3 players, 2 of which are franchise, one of which was a high-level all-star player. And if you're missing one, you should be able to really rally the troops to get enough. Look, last year they had a lot of excuses. They formed that roster really late. They didn't really have a lot of time to acquire depth. I thought they did that. They sort of addressed that in the offseason with some of the pickups that they had. And now, what's your excuse? And the thing about the NBA is you got to stay mentally on top and solid through thick and thin. Doesn't matter if you get punched in the face or not. You got to stay with it, and you got to be consistent beating teams. And look, there's a lot of guys missing a player here, a player there, even if it's a major player, and you gotta stay with it. But some of the losses that they've had, you really can't. You can't really fathom what's going on, but it's just typical NBA. Now, they did lose to 2 good teams, in Dallas and Golden State. I think, I don't know if Luka was Luka out. Yeah, Luka was out for the Dallas game. So, I mean, they did lose to 2 decent teams, but still, like, if you're really trying to make championship, you have championship ideas with your organization, you got to be able to beat teams consistently. You're not going to win every game, but losing 5 out of your last 6 is pretty hard to swallow. So, yeah, it's tough going forward for sure.
What about the suspension? You think Nurkic should have got more than Najee?
Well, I thought I would think that. Now, the only thing, Bogues, is Najee with the punch, he did connect to a referee though at
Oh,
the
did he?
end, right?
No, I didn't see
Yeah,
that
if
part.
you see it, I think again, because everybody's focused on. It was great. They had about 1 million memes on. If you look at Kyrie Irving's face through the whole
Oh,
thing,
that's hilarious. I saw that.
that was
He's like,
great,
what
right?
are you doing?
Yeah. So you would have thought that there was like a nuclear missile
Yeah,
strike and he was
exactly.
just looking at it. But no, but if you look at it, I think
Slipped off.
and Trent could look like that second punch, I think it did connect to the referee in the back of
Okay,
his head.
that's fair
So
enough. I didn't
I
know
don't
that
think
part.
he didn't knock him out. But I don't know, Bogues. Like I'm with you. Like the instigator should get most of it, but you never know. I just think it's because he probably made contact with an official,
That's fair enough.
even though that it wasn't. Yeah, it
It was
wasn't.
minimal.
I think the official was trying to hold some guy back, and he just sort of got into it and he made contact.
Well, I don't condone violence, Pro, but it's just nice to see a couple of punches connected in an NBA game because it ever rarely happens, and we always see the fist, like the Jordan Clarkson. He's always got his fists up when something happens. I don't condone violence, but it's nice to get a bit of hockey in the NBA. Maybe that'll change the ratings and get people engaged again, Pro. But just to finish on Phoenix, I mean, I'm hoping this is the slow death of the big threes, and it's looking like that way. You look at the teams that have been successful, that are built through their own draft and paying their own guys. OKC, Boston, pretty much. Bar Porzingis and Horford, but Horford was there initially. I hope it's gone that way, and I think some teams aren't seeing as much success as the Clippers previously, and now the Phoenix Suns of just going to buy 3 superstar max players is not going to win you a championship. It might not even get you a play-in as of today for the Phoenix Suns, who are in 11. So interesting there. Who you got? Who's your team?
Yeah, with that, I had the Milwaukee Bucks with me. Lost 2 in a row, lost to Brooklyn and Chicago. Beat Chicago, lost to Chicago, lost to Brooklyn. They got to be better. Now, they missed Giannis. I didn't really look up, Bogues. I got to do a better job of that. I don't know. He's missed to like the last 5 or 6 games, it looks like. I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't know if it's anything serious. It's just something that he might be dealing with. But, Middleton's back. I know he's not, he's still trying to get his footing, but they got Dame, they got Middleton. They've got, they got most of their bench. Not that their bench is anything great, but Bobby Portis and their guys coming off, and Gary Trent and Jr. and things. They just sort of look. they have been playing much better without question. I mean, they're still, I believe they're still fifth in the East at 16-14. They're playing well. They've been playing well lately, but you can't be losing to Chicago, man. They're like the Portland Trailblazers of the fucking East. You can't
Oh,
do
Brooklyn's
it. You
worse.
gotta,
I think
yeah,
Brooklyn's
and
worse.
losing to
Brooklyn's
Brooklyn.
like legit trying
Yeah,
to lose.
yeah, yeah. You can't do that. You
Not
gotta
back to
look.
back anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. You you can't stress it too much, like where you're losing it if you lose a game, but you got to be able. We talk about it all the time. You know, yeah, you don't have to beat the top teams like in top two, top three teams in the East. Like if you're losing to like Cleveland, Boston, New York, even Orlando, great, fine. But with the Chicago's, the Detroits, the Brooklyn, Charlotte, Toronto, Washington, you got to be wiping house with those guys. You got to be at like 70% of your games against that competition. I don't even care if you're 30% against the top four, but because you could still try to get a seed in the playoffs. You could try to get to that fourth seed or what have you, but you got to be able to dominate the teams that are way behind you. Look, teams like Miami or Indiana, I understand if you're going to lose to those guys once in a while, but those other like really bottom dweller teams, you got to be able to beat those guys consistently. And if you're not going to do that, that's a problem. So look, I don't think it's anything to really worry about, but we're just evaluating off the week. You can't lose. You can't lose to Chicago and Brooklyn.
Yeah, they'll
You just
be in the
can't do
mix
it.
somewhere in the playoff / play-in. But yeah, you got to win the games you're supposed to win. At least go 800, 80% plus on those games, and then if you go 50% on tough games, then you have a pretty good formula to get into the playoffs. But we'll see how they run. All right, Mike Brown fired. A lot of scathing comments from numerous coaches around the league with this one. I've noticed this is now a trend, Pro. Even if it kind of look, no coach ever thinks it's a warranted firing of another coach, but they come to bat a lot now. I know they have their own coaches association, and they're much more vocal, which has been interesting to see. Kind of the timeline of 20 years ago to now, where you've got coaches coming out saying, because generally they wouldn't want to belittle another GM or owner, because if they get fired, they want to have that as a job opportunity, right? But I think Mike Malone, safe to say, he wouldn't be back in Sacramento regardless. So he could have his comments basically, which I agree with. It said when they win, it goes to Sabonis and Fox, and when they lose, it goes to Mike Brown. He then also seconded that it was poor the way Sacramento handled it. So Sacramento lost the game the night before the firing for their fifth straight. Came to practice the next day, had the practice. Mike Brown ran the practice, did his media availability. Driving to the airport, they called him and fired him. So the comment from Mike Malone was, quote, "No class, no balls." And I agree with that. Like, have some balls. Like, if you're going to fire the guy, as much as it sucks doing that face-to-face to somebody, don't have him conduct a whole day, a whole practice, a whole media session. Get in the car on the way to the airport and then be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're on your way to the airport? Yeah, okay, yeah, you're fired." Like that's shit. That's just poor. Vivek was a minority owner with the Golden State Warriors. Funny story, when I was there, actually, he was a minority owner. They made the trade. His daughter was heavily involved with the team. I think she was a late teenager at the time. I'm not sure of her age, but you can go where you want with that knowledge. But she was around the team pretty close at times. And they made the trade for myself for Monte Ellis. Monte Ellis, look, a fan favorite with Golden State at the time. They weren't very good, but put points on the board. A explosive player, fun to watch, price of admission guy, right? She was a huge fan of his. So she hated me and hated the trade because of it. And it was kind of an interesting dynamic of like coming in, you got an owner's daughter that doesn't like you because you were traded for a favorite player, all that kind of stuff. And then the way he handled things, and then he'd gone over to Sacramento, hasn't had a great run as an owner. So it doesn't surprise me. He was the infamous owner that wanted to play 5-on-4 and leave a player cherry picking they actually did it in the G League, right, Pro? They did it in the G League and was trying to get, I don't know who was the head coach. Was it Malone at that point? Whoever the head coach was, trying to get them to like, hey, you should look at like playing 5-on-4 and leave a guy cherry picking because you just score straight away. Just absolute craziness. And Mike Malone's pretty scathing of him and just poor. Look, Mike Brown, unfortunately, he's had the MO of ticking time bomb, like goes real well, and then it's kind of like wears guys out a little bit with his voice. But you've had like your worst run in a decade plus. You finally got to the playoffs. Finally had some sort of culture, some sort of identity of who you're trying to be. Then you go and trade for DeMar DeRozan, which I would probably bet that was not probably something that Mike Brown wanted to do. I think he probably agreed to it, but I don't think it was like, hey, go get me this guy. Done by the owner, from what I understand, loves DeRozan, and not a great fit with that squad. DeRozan's a great player, but I just don't think you're a great fit with that squad. And now you suck, and Mike Brown gets the blame pro.
Yeah, it's an interesting league, to say the least, folks. Look, whatever you're gonna do, with your team, with your coach, with your GM, you have the right to do. Now, how you do it, you should conduct it with more class than that. You should never fire a guy going towards the airport. You know you're going to fire him. You've had countless discussions with your front office team, your advisors, what have you. You know what's going to really be happening, right? You don't have to tell the coach, because you don't want to be like, well, if you don't win tonight, you're going to get fired. You just can't have it that way, because if they win the game and then they're always on edge on it, you're going to have to fire the guy, but just do it the right way. You should have whoever's going to fire him should be, if you're traveling with the team or you're home, that person should be called off the road into that, to be with the team for, like, after that loss that sets you over the edge. Then you have that talk after after the press conference, before they leave, and say, look, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And just add some class to it. Look, the NBA, even De'Aaron Fox said it. You're in the league as a player. You get all this salary, to the point where you could get traded or cut at any time. Same thing with a coach. Or a GM. You can get cut at any time. But there is a class to it. There is a professionalism to it, and they obviously they didn't really show an example of it, and that's poor taste. And look, a lot of times in this league, though, Bogues, I think there is a coach versus GM mentality where, the coach thinks it's him, thinks it's the coaching and the sets and the development, and then the front office thinks it's, the roster they gave the coach to be successful. So a lot of times you see the coaches, they get a much shorter leash, on having to take a team to a certain level, versus a GM could always just blow it up and say, oh, we're just going to keep rebuilding, we're going to develop and rebuild. And I think you could sell that to the media a lot more than a coach saying it. I think that the GMs sort of get out of that sometimes by doing that. And that's just sort of where we are. Now, on the other side, though, Bogues, look, Sacramento, 2 years ago, they made the playoffs. I think 48 wins first round, but they had some high expectations, lost in the first round. Last year, I believe they didn't make it, and now this year they're 13-19. They are, they were playing well, and you're right. You could track it back to DeRozan. Possibility. You could definitely think that, but look, they're definitely not trending in the right direction. And look, you're not going to get any sympathy from Mike Brown. I mean, from Mike Malone, the way that he felt as though he was handled. But, like, you just don't do that. And I think that there is more of a unity these days with coaches, even if it's fake or real. Who knows? I think some of it's real. I think with Mike Malone, it is real. I think a lot of coaches give fake praise to other coaches just because that's, they want to sound like they have integrity in the media, in some cases. But it is a strange deal in Sacramento for sure. And they're definitely not going to win any style points of how they did that.
Doug Christie takes over as the head assistant. I wonder if his wife's going to follow him in the car behind the bus still, bro.
Oh boy, yeah, he definitely had some of that as a player, right? He had something about him and his wife. Yeah,
crazy stories. Used to follow him on the bus to all the road trips. Apparently, trade has happened. Finney Smith has gone to the Los Angeles Lakers for D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell just been bounced all over the place. This is kind of a crazy journey, pro. Drafted by the Lakers, number 2 pick, traded to the Nets, traded to the Warriors, traded to the T-Wolves, traded back to the Lakers, traded back to the Nets. So he's had quite a circle. D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis, and 3 second-round picks to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Finney Smith and Milton. So yeah, look, it's an interesting one. You got Vanderbilt there. You got a few other guys. Christie, your guy. I think Finney Smith, more of a small ball four at times. 3-4 with him and LeBron. They can, he's a multi-positional player. We both work with him. He's a great guy, great kid, great, works his balls off. Has really, worked his way into being a very good NBA player. Not sure what it does for the Lakers, really, Pro. Brings a bit of defense for him, maybe in what they didn't get from Gabe Vincent in that signing. Maybe a bit more defense with Finney Smith. And as long as that three ball's going at a decent clip and he's guarding the way he can, he should be pretty good added value. And obviously for Brooklyn, it just, Russell's deal is expiring, $80 million deal. They're in all in mode just to clear their books at all costs.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Russell as far as if he's going to get released or they're going to keep him. Are they going to stretch that out, or they're gonna release him, minus a prorated veteran minimum to go to another team, and they just want to go with the guys that they got now, the young guys, or bring them around. Who knows? I think that this gives the Lakers a player that doesn't need the ball in his hands at all times. That he's as close to an elite defender as you're going to get. He may not be at the elite level, but he's definitely a high level defender and a guy that plays team basketball. It puts the ball back and it always is in LeBron's hands, but Russell definitely needs his shots, low shot selection. It's a bad shot selection player, and there's some rough edges to him. I think with Dorian, Dorian just gives him another high level defender that could, a straight line drive you, play that small ball four, could play three, really high basketball IQ, very high integrity guy. And I think that at times, it's another defender. Look, LeBron has definitely taken a step back as far as his ability to guard people and stay in front. I think Max Christie is not at the level as Dorian Finney-Smith as a defender, but he probably gives you a little bit more offense at times than Dorian does. But those two guys on the court at the same time could really lock people up. You could play Reeves. You could play Reeves at point guard. You could go with Reeves at point guard. You can go Christie, Rui, LeBron, and Davis at times. And I think a lineup when you have two guys that could really get stops. You could put Dorian in. You could go lineups with Reeves, Christie, Dorian Finney-Smith, LeBron, Davis, or you could just go totally small. Who knows? But you have another high-level defender in there, another guy that doesn't really need the ball. He's shooting the ball at a decent clip. I think he's over 40%, if I'm not mistaken, from three, Dorian, this year. And he's just a guy that's, like I always called him a Michael Cooper type. If anybody watched those 80s Lakers teams that could really guard you, could make the open three, but he's definitely a team guy, a supportive guy. And I think it's really good for the Lakers. Instead of having one more guy that needs the ball in his hands, he's going to take crazy shots. It's just a guy that, that you could depend on.
Puts the ball back in Davis, LeBron, Reeves, puts it in their hands. He's a happy role player off that. I totally agree that Russell fit to me was always questionable. I think it was more of a salary move and trying to, quote Mike Procopio, deck chairs of the Titanic need to be reshuffled.
Maybe. But I think what they were doing, Bogues, is they were a little bit desperate when they made the trade for him, and they just needed somebody to give him a little more offense and a little bit more of a spark. The problem is, you got too many guys that need the ball in their hands, and now you got Austin Reeves developed. Obviously, Austin Reeves is a better player than D'Angelo Russell, so they're going to go with the younger player. They're going to go with the more, the player at the most upside. And I think what they're getting out of Max Christie, Dalton Connect, and things like, guys like that, they could really put the focus back into there. And then again, get the ball moving a little bit more to LeBron, a little bit more to Davis. Reeves is going to have the ball in his hands a lot now. He'll probably take some of those minutes as well. So it's interesting in LA. I don't think it moves the needle greatly, but I think the style of basketball they could play could be a little bit more efficient. They got better defensively. And again, they don't just have a player that's going to sit on the ball all night. So I think it's a good move. I don't think it's a franchise changing move, but I think it's a very good move. Plus, with Dorian, going forward, you could re-up him, when his contract's up. I'm not sure how many years he's got left. He may have one more after this one. So now you have a guy that you could probably, you could pay, you could keep in your organization for a while, and it just gives you a good asset, not a great asset, but a good asset, a team guy, a defender that doesn't need the ball, which is really hard to find in this league. You would think it's easier, but I think any team would be happy to have Finney Smith on the roster. Plus, they could trade him if they want to, and it's a trade chip that will have some value, not just to throw it in a trade. I think people, could give you a first round pick at least for Dorian going forward, but I think they're going to keep him. I think he'll be a good fit.
Yeah, I agree. Trade season is heating up. Obviously, the top 5 players picked to be on the move, Pro. Brandon Ingram, Zion, Jimmy Butler, Zach LaVine, and Jeremy Grant. Which one of those is the best chance you think of getting moved?
Give me the list one more time, Bogues.
Ingram, Zion, Butler, LaVine, Jeremy Grant.
I think Ingram, just the way sort of what's going on with that organization and just sort of it just seems like there's a little bit of a back and forth. I think I did a lot of number crunching with the Butler deal this in the last week or so, and it's not impossible, obviously. Riley's coming out, not that you would listen to it and believe it, but saying they're not going to trade him. But it's really hard because of how much money he makes, $49 million. So just like, for instance, if you want to trade him to Houston, right? Like right off the bat, before you get any player that that like you're calling like a number 1 option in this trade, you're going to have to trade, you're going to have to trade Steven Adams. You're going to have to trade Jock Landale. And you're probably going to have to trade Jeff Green just to make the money even close to working. You're going to have to come back with at least 33 to 34 million bucks, unless you have cap room to spare. So now you're talking about, if it's a 1-for-1 trade, trading like 5 guys, for Butler. And then they'll probably throw in a couple of minimum salary guys to make the deal work. It's going to be really hard, in my opinion, to trade some of these guys. You're going to probably you're going to have to add a third team like a Washington or a Detroit that will have cap room that be able to facilitate trades and absorb. So it's going to be tough, but I think, there's a lot of talk on Butler, but I think Ingram. I don't think Zion's going to be tradable right this year. I think they might give it a little bit more time, probably deal him in the summer, if anything, if they deal him, before next season at all. But I think it's going to be really tough, to find a team that could really do that. And, because you don't want to give up a lot of assets to get Butler back. You'll give up a couple of guys but you're not going to give up anything really good. Like if
the
you're
Heat have come out and basically said they're not doing it. Take that for what it's worth. And I agree with you that one's the hardest one. I agree too. I think it's quite funny. Jeremy Grant's in trade rumors every season. Whenever he signs it.
Yeah.
I think the first year of that big deal that he signed, he was in trade rumors. Ingram, I think, is the one, and he doesn't fit in that roster. I don't think he fits there long term. I think he's frustrated on not getting the extension. They offered him $165 million for 18 months ago, Pro. Looks like it's going to dry up to probably a 1+1 at the 40 range, maybe hits the 50. So he's lost some money there and some security. Can't play. That'll be the interesting one. But yeah, I agree. I think Ingram's the biggest chance. And just touching that, you sent me a slide from Basketball Forever. They put out trade percentage ratios, the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life, Pro. So thanks for sending me that. But they actually trade likelihood is the post. So they've got 45% chance Jimmy Butler goes to Phoenix, 43% chance Jonas Valanciunas goes to the Lakers, so on and so forth. The dumbest clickbaitist shit I've ever seen in my life. And then you open the comments, and the first comment is, "Where are these percentages from?" It's just anyway. Thanks for sending me that. It hurt my eyes. I was like, "What the fuck is this shit?" That should have been a useful or useless, but it was so useless we couldn't even put it in that segment, Pro. Moving on. Some bliss for you, Pro. Some bliss for you. The Phoenix Suns, Pro. Have you seen the big news out of Phoenix?
Oh, I think hot dog prices?
Correct. The $2 menu. The $2 menu. The $2 value menu. The Phoenix Suns owner changes food prices at stadium to $2. The $2 value menu now, Pro. Hot dogs, $9 to $2. Water goes down to $2 from $8.50. Soda or a soft drink, $6.50 to $2. Bag of chips, $7 to $2. And bag of popcorn, $7 to $2. in all seriousness, this is much needed. The gouging in arenas, Australia is the worst. Like, bro, like you could go to a 5-star restaurant, white tablecloth, order the lobster, the Wagyu, and you'll still get out cheaper than going to a local cricket game or your professional cricket or football team and just getting a couple of pies and some drinks. It's ridiculous. So, one, it's a good thing, and two, I know you're pumped.
Oh, without question, I'm pumped. But hey, look, you got to get your calories somehow. But look, with what's going on in the league, as far as the media rights and what you're gonna start making, at some point, you you're gonna have to. It's gonna have to come to realization that look, you can't continue to treat the people that continue to support you financially. Even though the ticket sales isn't probably the biggest pool of revenue that you have in the league anymore now with the media rights being as skyrocketed as they are. But I mean, you got to give them a little bit of a little bit of leeway. Look, it's bad enough that you charge the prices for tickets, and I understand that you need to. These astronomical $60 million contracts, you're gonna have to pay for them somehow. So you're gonna have the revenue, but you're gonna have to show them a little bit of like, hey, give them a little bit of leeway to be able to free up their pocketbooks a little bit. If they're spending an average of $400 for 4 tickets, right? Total, 500 for like 100, 125 a ticket, $500 for a family of 4. You got to give them a little bit of leeway with, the drinks and and the sandwich or whatever you're gonna, hot dogs or what have you. You got to, make it a little bit more affordable for them. I mean, you got to have to play ball with them. It can't just be continue to bend them over and just jam it to them. You can't do it all the time,
especially when half these arenas don't let you bring your own shit in. You can't bring bottles in because you could throw them and hurt somebody.
Right.
And so they basically like railroad you into we've got waters here. That'll be $19. You're just like, man, like it's super bad. So I think it's great, and I commend the Phoenix Suns for it. I think more people should do it, bro. So it's definitely a good thing. ESPN Top 100 2025 NBA Draft predictions. I'm just going to go through our Australians, obviously. Rocco, as of today, is predicted at 31. Tui, 37. Proctor, 43. Henschel, 75. And Olbrich, 89. So genuine chances at the top three there in Rocco, Tui, and Proctor. You probably haven't seen too much of their games, but I think, Tui is in stellar form the last couple of weeks, playing really, really well. I don't know if you know much about him. He's with the Sydney Kings, like a multi-positional player, can guard basically 1 through 5, if not 1 through 4. Long, really good in the open floor, Euro step, both hands, 3 balls coming, so, and works like an army family. So really, really good kid. And then you got Rocco, who's the 7'3", 7'4", Trent. Don't know what he's listed at exactly.
Listed at 7'3".
7'3". So he still has work to do.
I heard a lot about him. I've heard a lot about him.
He has work to do still. He's injured at the moment. Hasn't put up big numbers, but as a big in professional league, it's going to take you a bit more time. But he's definitely got work to do. I think his body needs a little bit of work, just so he can indulge in some more physicality. I think at times he shies away a little bit from it, just because he doesn't have that strength yet. He's very, very beanpoly, which I was as well at that age, and you just got to kind of get in the weight room and spend an off season there. And remember Giannis's journey. So they said he couldn't put on weight, and then he came back like Hulk that 1 year. So you got to spend the time with the iron. But that's the top 100 there. And just to finish off, pro, the University of Miami coach resigns, Jim Larinaga, and his comments, they were legit. Well, he's 75 years old. They're 4-8 at the moment, and his comment around this was, what shocked me was after we made the Final Four just 18 months ago, the very first time I met with the players post that, 8 of them decided they were going to put their name in the transfer portal and leave. I asked them, don't you like it here? They said, no, I like it. It's great. But the opportunity to make money someplace else created a situation that you have to begin to ask yourself as a coach, what is this all about? The answer, it's become professional. And it has. I mean, it's college. My concern for college sports is, look, you're going to have your big schools that just buy championships, but that bond you had, look, it needed to be a balance. I hated the fact that they were pillaging players and gouging them and not giving them anything for the money they were making in their schools. It's gone too far the other way, where you don't have that, you don't identify to your school anymore because it's a transactional process now. It's not about, I want to go to that school because it's a great education. It's a great degree for what I want to go to school in. I'm a great pro. I could be a pro athlete. Love the campus, love the location. Families went there, whatever the hell it is. That tradition is starting to get pulled apart, bro. And I think you're going to lose a lot of those passionate fans that supported that, I would say, innocent young high school kid coming into growing into a man or a woman. In you know, a lot of female sports too that end up being professional now, and with the NIL, it's just it's hard to see. I don't know. We've spoken about it at length, but beating a dead horse, but it is becoming an issue, and I don't know what the stop or the fix is. It's kind of what the NBA is going through in a different way with style of play, where now college basketball is just becoming NBA light, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, Bogues. Yeah, this has been a problem for a while, and the NCAA sort of stepped on their own feet with this, not giving them what they wanted 10 years ago, and fighting them tooth and nail for it. And I think that if you put a system in place and had some way for them to make revenue, and that's what they wanted 10 years ago, and then they fought for it a lot harder, and that you just got lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and it's going to be a big problem. And the problem now is it's all over the place. It's there's no salary cap to it, so teams could just spend what they spend. And they have the NIL, which they have two different things, actually three different things. They've got their NIL, which is just like deals on marketing and social media. You get paid for that. That's your NIL. Then you've got your collectives, where it's basically you take from donors, and you get this big pile of money that you could just sort of give out. And now for the Power Fours, which make up about 40 to 50 teams in the country, where each school pays an additional $25 million or $24 million into a pot for quote unquote revenue sharing, which is basically money that they'll give most of it to football, then basketball, and then some other sports. But I think the biggest problem, Bogues, is you get all of these lawsuits now. Anytime you try to take anything away from an athlete now in the college ranks, they're just going to sue you. So the NCAA doesn't want to go through that, because now you've got defamation and all this, and you've got all this money that could be bargained, and now you're opening up for 8-digit, 9-digit lawsuits. So I think it's a big problem. I think it's a big problem in our game, and there's really nothing you can do about it. I think the NCAA needs to fight back a little bit with not allowing automatic transfer eligibility. And I think if you do, since all these guys are getting paid, I would have it if you transferred out. Simple rules like this that could adjust, where if you transferred out and you want to be automatically eligible, I would charge $100,000 transfer fee. If you want to sit out and not pay a fee, then you sit out the year. But like things like that.
Yeah,
where
but
they
that's
could
not going to
just
make a
leave
difference,
you.
bro, because these kids that are making $1 million plus, they go to a school, they don't get their minutes, or then they're playing really well, and some school comes in and says, we'll give you $7 million, they'll pay the transaction fee. I think you got to do the one. You got to do the one. I love the 1 year penalty. Like, if you're going to transfer, barring unforeseen circumstances, like if you get recruited by a coach and then they get fired when you're coming in, you get a free slate to walk away because you sign with that coach. Or if like there's like legit proper like bullying or some shit like that, where a coach is just being. But if you just want to transfer, yeah, cool, no worries. You got to sit out of here. It's simple as that. Like, and unpaid potentially. Then it'll stop all this shit. It's becoming professional sports, and you can just. I agree with the coaches. Like, the adversity hits, it's like, I'll just transfer. Oh, yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a guy fighting for me for the same minutes. I'm not going to fight. I'll just transfer. Like, you're just setting these kids up for failure in future life. Like, when they get into the business world or become into the real world, like, you can't just do that. Like, it's ridiculous.
But also about 10 to 15% of people that are in the portal never find a school. It's a lot of the people that are around them telling them things. That's a big problem.
Bad advice.
Also, Bogues, you've got a lot of these college programs. I would say about 75% of the college programs, if not more, are calling other players that are on other rosters as we speak today. They're calling those guys to getting them to transfer for next year. So
it's supposed to be illegal back in my day.
Yeah, just now it's just it's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Wild, Wild West.
It's just no rules.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's gone. Like I was in a phase of college where it was like, hey, like, can I just get like a couple of grand a semester? I'm happy with that. I can take a girl out to eat to a nice restaurant. I can go to a movie once a week. You know, like I'm happy. That's all I need. Like I don't need much more. To now, it's like, where's my 10 million? It's like, what is going on here? Like it's gone the other way, and that's how we usually see things. And it's going to take a while for the pendulum to swing back in the middle. But I think it sucks for college sports. It takes the purity out about what it was about. So anyway, we'll move on. We're going to get through this. A few more minutes left of the NBA stuff. Useful or useless, pro. I've got a couple of good ones for you. Who do you think is the best points per possession pick and roll ball handler in the NBA, pro, at the moment? I've got a top 5 here.
You want a top 5 or you want the best one?
Give me a top 5. Let's see if you get one of them right.
Both. You know how fucking bad I am with this shit, but okay.
You got all these databases. Okay. Come on, dude. You don't need to check them.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with Kyrie, Brunson, Doncic, Edwards, Booker.
You got one. Kyrie is in second. Sexton is number 1, 1.16 points per possession. Kyrie 2 and DeRozan are pretty much tied at 2 and 3. Lillard 4, Garland 5. So they're your best pick and roll ball handlers. Useful or useless, pro?
Well, it's useful. Scores a pick and roll. Good for them. I'm a fucking moron because I only got 1 out of 5, but no one's paying me to be a GM. I'll say it's useful, Bogues. As usual, you're coming through.
Useful for sure. First player in NBA history with 30-plus points, 20-plus rebounds, 5-plus three-point makes at 100% in a game was who?
Is it this year, Bogues?
Yep.
30,
20, 5 made threes, 5 from 5. Shot 100%.
Victor?
No, it is Cat. So we shat on him a couple of weeks ago with the bad defense. Now we're giving him some love for setting an all-time line. Useful, useless.
Useless because I hate all these one-off fucking stat records bullshit. So I'm gonna stick with my fucking guns. But hey, congratulations to him. But I'm not falling for it, Bogues.
I think it's useless at the moment because style of play is starting to change that way. So this stat is not one that you would, Shaq's not shooting five threes back in the day. Even if you could half shoot it, right? So it's kind of, you can't really factor it into the rest of the NBA history. All right, here's one. You're a big MJ buff, guy. So Michael Jordan, when playing a player head-to-head, so over the course of their career, so I'm playing Shaq, I'm playing Hakeem, my head-to-head points battles, Michael Jordan has outscored 982 out of 983 opponents, bro. Who's the one he hasn't in head-to-head battles all time?
That he hasn't beat out in scoring?
Head-to-head when they've played. Their teams have played. So their totals against each other head-to-head points-wise, not team, individuals. There's only one player in NBA history that has done it.
The only guy, I'll take 2 guesses if possible.
Sure.
I'll go with Dominique Wilkins 1 and Larry Bird 2, but I'm probably wrong on both ends. But
none.
I'll go with those 2.
This guy was a star in the, I would say, 2000s and came in the league in the mid 90s.
I don't know, brother.
Allen Iverson.
One
I never would have guessed. But it's amazing. Only one, because he had some battles back in the 80s too, right? Like, think about Hakeem. Abdul Aruf was a scorer. Like, there's some random names you could get. He's outscored them all. So useful, useless, bro.
It's useful. Why not? Now, how is that, Bogues? Is that overall or is that just points average? Like, so
points versus that
if he
person.
played Iverson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Total.
So
played Iverson 100 times. And Jordan scored 1,000. Iverson scored 1,001 in those total.
He played Iverson 100 times.
No, that's an example, bro.
Oh, okay, my bad. I was like, Jesus Christ, am I losing my shit?
Yeah, it's not that at all.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's a head-to-head accumulative from just their games when they're head-to-head. All right, Aussies of the week. real quick, Pro. Last week, guess who got it last week when we didn't do our show?
Oh, you gave it out?
Well, I had it out, so I'll give it out because it keeps
Was
it
it Ben
fair.
Simmons?
It was Ben Simmons. There's only 2 games, but Roguebogue's first. He gets his first one of the year. 12.3 points, 5 rebounds, 8.3 assists, 1.3 steals, 9 for 11 from the free throw line. That's all I cared about. That's why I got it. Because he got there and he knocked them down. And then since then, he hasn't shot the ball much since then again. But
he jinxed them, Bogues.
Yeah, I must have. But he gets 1 for that one. And this week, there was a pretty low bar. Dyson Daniels has been sick, has missed a couple of games this week. So I had to give it to Josh Giddey, who's only played 1 game this week, but he had 23, 15, 10, 1 and 1. So he gets our nod for a 1-game domination triple-double, and they get the win against your who did they beat again? Chicago. They beat someone they weren't supposed to beat, wasn't it?
Yeah, they beat Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, yeah, that was Pro's team of the week. So that is that, Pro. What do you got? What do you got this week?
Can we free fucking Jock Landale? Can we do that? Can we free him? Because
Steve Adams is taking those minutes, but they're not even playing a backup 5 much anymore. Even Adams is only playing 4 to 5 minutes.
Can we send him a cake with a file in it? Can we do that to free our guy? I mean,
cut himself out of jail.
Let's get him out of jail, man. Couple of things.
I got a funny story about that quote because Jamal McGlaw was with me in Milwaukee my rookie year, and he was a great vet for me, but he was like an old school professional, like pro, but like didn't take no shit from coaches, like knew the game, would call. And he got traded to Portland when Nate McMillan was there, and that was back when Nate McMillan was like really gung-ho on some rules, like no phones on the buses, like all that kind of shit, right? Pretty hardcore stuff. And, NBA players, I'm a grown man, like you can't treat me like a little kid. So I remember we're crossing over shoot-arounds with Portland. They came to Milwaukee, and I see Jamal. I'm like, oh, Jamal, man, good to see you. How are you, man? How's things down there? Right in front of Nate McMillan, I'm just in purgatory over here. I'm in jail. They got these handcuffs on us all. They're treating us like little kids, like loud as that's a 10-year vet that gives no fucks. But just do go on. That's just a funny story that I had from back in my day.
Bogues, I got 2 for you. First off, our social media post, probably the best of all time, was with the what style of play last week.
Box outs?
Yeah, box outs. I apologize. Box outs. So 130 comments on that one social media post. So congrats to our social media team.
But hang on, you've dug up some shit on that though, right? Because didn't you say that you were
Folks, first of all,
yeah,
I think
we're gonna touch on this.
I think that box out stat is complete bullshit. I think they have a fucking an AI.
DEI.
I think they have an AI, no, not DEI, an AI bot that has a heroin problem doing the fucking stats for box outs. I forgot what game I covered. It was like Cleveland, Brooklyn. And I counted it and I gave you the video. There was like 32 box outs in that game. And look, and for what I'm seeing on the box out deal is this. It's the style of play. So a lot of times the guy who's covering the shooter either runs by him to run him off the line, or he closes out and doesn't box out. Sometimes people don't crash, so there's no reason to box out. So there is a reason why the box outs are going down. It's definitely style of play, but there are box outs that are happening.
Like blatant, like so. Yeah, it has to be the way the stat is kept. Doesn't mean box out to actually grab the ball. Maybe it means that. Proper box out to grab the rebound.
Yeah, it's definitely not. And it's funny because if you read the comments, you sort of learn people's sort of point of view on things. I don't think they're counting box outs on free throws. So yeah. I don't think they count those because that'll be a million, right?
Yeah.
But that couldn't just be an anomaly. First of all, I got no life as it is, but I'm not spending my fucking days like watching 4 NBA games and counting box outs. But that couldn't just been out of the blue. I think that like 30 plus is a decent number, and that wasn't even a crazy box out game. I just thought that guys were like Dorian Finney-Smith was boxing out for Brooklyn, and there's certain guys that would box out regularly. That was just their routine. But yeah, I thought when you said like 8 would be leading the league, and then there was like 30 plus in
it's
that game. And I'm
NBA.com.
sure,
So people out there, help us out. Help us out if we can find
no,
some wording.
the AI robot needs to piss in a fucking cup, folks, is what it needs to do, because it's got a drug problem, and I'm gonna be at the fucking head of it. And I want this person fucking, I want this AI robot fucking taken. I want him examined, and he needs to be put in rehab, because that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a
something's
problem.
going on. But if anyone out there knows, can help us out, help us out. Go ahead.
Please do. Second one, Bogues. Just, All-Star stuff is around the corner. I hate the All-Star game. We both aren't really big fans of it. Now, obviously, the change on how they're going to select the teams and the amount of players and whatnot, I haven't really read up on. But just two obscure players. I'm just going to say both of them will make the All-Star team. They're both good players playing on decent teams. James Harden and Derek White will both make the All-Star team on one way or another. Fact or fake news? Both players playing well. Harden's obviously the scorer, and White sort of that fourth option that just plays efficiently and just effectively through that. Both of those guys are going to make All-Star teams. Fact or fake news?
James Harden will make the All-Star team. Fact. Derek White. Fake news. I don't know how you put him in. I mean, they're going to have Trae Young. You're going to have Brunson. You're going to have probably Mitchell, and is Garland playing? Garland's playing pretty well as well.
Maybe.
So, and they're top.
Yeah.
There's your guards already. Then you got. Does Orlando get someone in? They're fourth. They probably don't get because there's so much injuries.
Nah, they're probably not. They probably and you probably don't want to select them, because if you select that person, they're going to get
Lillard's
hurt.
Always,
so forget about it.
Lillard will be in the mix somewhere just from votes.
Yeah,
just
you're
from
right.
Votes. And then you got Jimmy Butler. Halliburton won't make it this year, and that's it. So I think there's just so many guards where it's going to be hard. And if the Knicks keep balling and Bridges has a couple more 40 balls, maybe he's in the mix too. So I think your guards eat out Derek White, in my opinion. I think they'll get definite Brown and Tatum. But beyond that, I don't see it.
But also, Bogues, on that social media post, I love the way you pronounce stat. You reminded me of a 7-foot fucking Bob Cratchit from A Christmas Carol fucking movie.
We don't know who that is,
something
bro.
out of fucking. You don't know who Bob Cratchit is? You never seen A Christmas Carol?
No, bro.
Jesus Christ!
This
most people. This is why I don't fuck around with rich people, man.
Rich people? You think I was always rich?
Not always, no. But now you got more zeros in your bank account than a box of fucking Cheerios. Can you watch A Christmas Carol? It's a worldwide deal. It's not even a United States thing. It was done in England.
But that's what most Americans say.
Fuck out of here. It's a black and white movie done in London.
You still think we're on your time zone? Do you know what day it is? Do you know what day it is in Australia? What day is it today in Australia?
No. I have no idea. Until I start getting paid for this podcast, I don't give a fuck what day it is in Australia.
But no, I don't. I pronounce start. Is that what I said?
Start. You're like start. It's something it's something out of A Christmas Carol. Which again, you need a little bit of a Christmas spirit.
Can be paying.
It's a great
paying no one out about an accent, brother. Just a word of advice.
I know it's the worst. And a lisp. I have an accent and a lisp. I mean, that's fucking pretty bad. That's as bad as my waistline versus how ugly my face is. But A Christmas Carol, man, it's one of the most famous movies of all time in Christmas. You never heard of Ebenezer Scrooge?
Never, ever heard of it. Ever.
I
reckon I could ask 30 friends of mine.
And Home Alone. There you go. That's a Christmas movie, brother. Home Alone, Home Alone 2, maybe.
Fuck out of here.
Grinch.
Jesus Christ. Seriously. I have no idea. Call up, I don't know. Call up Kyle Kuzma. See if he wants to do a podcast with me from now on, man.
Is that movie on your list with, what is it, Titanic and Shawshank? It has to be, that's the 3 rotation.
Dude, so I look forward to that every year. Every year, Christmas Eve from 10 p.m. to like 2 a.m., I'll watch Christmas movies. I'll watch A Christmas Carol first, A Wonderful Life. You ever hear of A Wonderful Life?
Heard of that,
no?
Yes. Haven't watched it though.
Yeah,
but I've heard of it.
So that's basically just like A Wonderful Life, same time, whatever. Okay. Christmas Carol, Wonderful Life, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and A Christmas Story. But the kid that wants the fucking the air rifle for Christmas. You never watched that? It's on 24-hour loop on TNT.
I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. But A Christmas Carol, Bob Cratchit, look him up. Actually,
Okay.
you know what? Ebenezer Scrooge is more your fucking type, folks.
All right, man. We'll see you
Bah
next
humbug.
week. We're going to talk NBL. You see another thing you don't know nothing
Yeah,
about. So
I'm already falling asleep. So go ahead. You fuckers
wow.
talk about that shit.
All right, man. See you next week.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks.
Later.
All right, just a quick NBL wrap here. A lot has gone on the last week over Christmas period and whatnot. So Illawarra, clear front runners in my opinion. They are playing very good basketball, very well balanced, inside outside. They've got some 3-point shooting, some isolation guys. They've got guys that can throw it to on the block. Very well coached, playing at a blistering pace. They're up and down the floor. They are vulnerable at times defensively. You can get into them a little bit, but they seem like a very well together unit. They seem like they like being around each other. So they're obviously piping the Kings on Christmas Day in a big game there. They do own my City Kings number at the moment. They're 3-0 against them this season. So, but they own everyone pretty much. I mean, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix is the one team that's kind of been their bogey team. They got them this week, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But they're playing really good. Tasmania Jack Jumpers right back in the fold. They've won 8 straight games. Will Magnay concerned 6 to 8 weeks out with a broken toe. How that factors in, I think, is a huge out for them in the playoffs. I think right now they can sustain it. They're playing a good style of basketball. They're noticeably playing faster. Like Tasmania, first half of the season, the last couple of seasons, grind out team, play in the mud, hold, grab. Something's changed there. Scott Roth, credit to him. He's adjusted. They're pushing hundreds. I mean, you know, Trent, like only a year ago, if they scored 70, they'd win, you know, and now they're really pushing the tempo.
Yeah, just a completely different look for them. They were a defensive first team, and now you can see that they've kind of gone with a different style of play with the pace, and it suits Crawford super well, and that's why he's been playing the way he's playing. And you know, Doyle has always kind of naturally jacked up a lot of shots for them. So with these two guys who are like high octane players, like it seems like it was the right move to better fit kind of their play style.
100%. Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. I think they just had to increase it a little bit. They didn't need to go Illawarra style where they go on 120s, but they, you know, if they can push close to 90, 100, their defense is so good that they should win most games. So that's all good there. What else do we have? We've got Brisbane. Look, Brisbane showed some fight. They've showed some fight over the last couple of weeks. They're just sitting in 7th just by percentage. They're 9 and 10 at the moment. They do have an injury to their import, so they've brought in Josh Adams, who comes in and will provide a scoring punch, but they're such an isolation-heavy team, so he does fit what they're doing, but they definitely are not a ball movement team. They like to really just pick and roll, ISO. They're one of the lowest assist to point scoring teams in the league. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Perth thumped by Illawarra. Then they go up and thump Adelaide. Bryce is on a tear. I mean, he's got his eye in this season, shooting the piss out of the ball. Southeast Melbourne have been playing pretty consistently. They've been you know, consistent for the most part. They're sitting pretty in 6th. And then Melbourne back on track after a slide in probably the ugliest game you'd see of the season up in Cairns, which finished, I think, 77 to 67. Wasn't very pretty to watch. Your eyes bled watching that one. New Zealand are in all sorts there. Lost 8 straight. PJC now receives a 5-game suspension for pushing a ref. I think put a fork in them. Since the Taco Fall acquisition, the 8 straight has come really. We talked about it months ago as to why they would make that move, and they were playing pretty well. Look, no one picked them to win a championship this season. No one barely picked them to make the top 4, but that change, I think, just completely kind of changed the way they play and just the complete opposite fit for PJC. Like, he wants to be up. You bring in Taco Fall, who's a half-court slow, got to wait for him to get up the court, which is fine, but you've got PJC as your star player. It's like you got 2 contradicting styles of play, and I think it's hurt them. You can see they're in all sorts.
Especially in mid-season, you can see Taco gets lost a lot on defense. Like, the one thing he kind of brings to the table is his rim protection, but you can tell that he has struggled to adjust to the NBL's play style. He's late on most of his rotations. He's not there to protect the rim most of the time. So, yeah, I think we've spoken about it heaps, but just an interesting change in dynamic going from Gillespie to him. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them.
Yeah, and look, you don't want him out of the paint, but in this league, you know, even when I was playing we try to pack the paint a lot with me, but at times I'd have to come up a little bit and just get out to the free throw line at least, just to create a bit of a contest. And he literally doesn't leave the charge circle, because he can't get back there, and and then PJC suspension, they'll they just won't have enough scoring to win those games. A question I'd have for you is, you got Cairns at 3-15 and New Zealand at 7-11. Do you think Cairns can get off the bottom?
No.
You don't think?
No. I think it's such a dumpster.
They got the Breakers this week.
Yeah, I just think culturally though, and like the way the team's being run, like there's no way out for this Cairns team right now. I think they implode too often in games where they're even in it. Like, so to lose more games than New Zealand at this point would be surprising.
I don't know. Look, I think they're one of those teams that could like get a couple of wins late in the season. Teams go up to Cairns. Game doesn't really matter. We'll roll over these guys, and they might. They should probably have 6 wins. They had three or four games where they were leading 3/4 time, sometimes by 7 or 8 points, and would just completely shit on themselves. Just not. So you're right, but if they clean that up, and I just don't love New Zealand. I just don't think that I just don't think there's much there now that PJC's gone. Especially they got 11 games left. He's missing 5 of them. It's 4 wins they got to get, or 5 maybe Cairns have to get. Probably they have to go 500, but you never know. I mean, if I was a betting man, get some decent odds on it. You never know.
I think you make a good point, but I've just seen Cairns too many times in games where they've had the driver's seat the whole game, and then for whatever reason they just go away from everything that's working and just completely implode.
Yeah, go ISO or whatever.
And then New Zealand have guys like Mooney and stuff who can really take over the scoring load if they want to. Like Mooney's probably itching at to get these shots that PJC is going to take out. So I think they can they're not going to win games, but they can plug that hole a little bit with some of the guys they have.
This game this week will be interesting. The toilet bowl will be fun. Actually fun to watch just to see who gets that one. But they're just not looking good. Sydney's still up and down. Probably a bit of a lucky win in New Zealand before Christmas. I think New Zealand were playing pretty well in that game, and then the Kings took over in the 4th quarter and stole that one up there, and then lose a winnable one versus Illawarra again on Christmas Day. It was very similar to the first game at Kudos, where the Kings were kind of, feel like where the Kings lost that game was in the first half. I think that there should have been a bigger lead. The Kings, I think, played reasonably well for 18 to, let's say 16 to 20 minutes of that half. And Illawarra didn't play particularly well. But then the last 2 minutes wasn't great from the Kings, and it ended up being a 2-point game at halftime. It should have been a 12 to 15 point lead for the Kings. That's how well and how poorly Illawarra played. And you give Illawarra credit, they always keep it close enough, and then they took over in the second half and dominated that game and won. So tough one for Sydney. They got a big game at time of recording tonight against Adelaide, who is in, I don't think they're complete crisis mode just yet, but it's an iota away. I think tonight's win, if the Kings win tonight, it'll put them over the top. But look, they're as close to a crisis mode as you can get. Can they steady the ship is the issue for them. They are 7-11 with a poor percentage. So that 7-11, that percentage actually counts as another loss, because you got Brisbane at 98%. You got Southeast Melbourne, who are 6th at 103, and you got Perth at 100. They're at 93. So they won't claw back that percentage, I don't think, unless they start, get a couple of 40-point wins, which I don't see. So you're almost 7-12 really. So you're a couple of games back. This is a team that people were, I was one of them. Like, their roster they've constructed a championship roster per talent, but it just goes to show you talent. You can't just put talent together, especially in the NBL. They brought in a guy in Montrezl Harrell, all the hype, league ambassador, doing all the promo stuff, but a fantastic player, and when he's in his right mind, he's dominant, especially in the NBL. But a leopard doesn't change the spots. My point with this was, if he's had issues with behavior and teamsmanship in the NBA, the best league in the world, now he's coming to a secondary league that's not the best league in the world, where he's the big dog. What makes you think that's going to change? And it's exactly what's happened. You look at their games. He's sitting on the bench, the furthest possible seat you can sit from your teammates. There's literally, you watch the camera, there's like all the guys are sitting together, assistants, 4 or 5 players, gap. He's basically sitting in the front row of the courtside seats. You don't even know he's on the bench. He was benched last game. Apparently there was something happened at practice. Who knows? It kills you. Doesn't join the team huddle after the game last game. And people say, oh, it's blown it out of proportion. What's the big deal? When you're in a team and you do something like that, especially as a star player, if you're a fringe player that's frustrated with minutes, it's still a big deal and it'll be addressed. When you're one of the guys everyone's looking at and you're still doing it, you're trying to make a point. So you got that. You got KD. Look, he seems motivated, but it seems numbers orientated. It seems like he's just out there trying to, hey, I'm getting my numbers. We suck, but at least I'm doing very, very numbers driven. DJ is back from his injury. Doesn't look in great shape. Looks like he's gained a little bit more weight with the injury, which is not, it's not a great thing when you do your hamstring, you come back, you put a bit more weight on, you put more weight on there, so you hope that gets right. And then you follow that all up with Humphries just completely throwing the coach under the bus at the end of the game. And whether he's right or wrong, you just don't do that. You don't do that. They were playing a decent style of basketball before all the suspensions. And there's not enough basketballs on this team, number one, which I think is a problem, which is why Humphries is frustrated. But Humphries as a 7-footer and a guy that played that position, something you can control is getting 10 rebounds and 2 blocks. So that's not a role. That's not a coach like, hey, I need you to get 10 rebounds today for me. That's your role today. That's not a role. You should try to. Towards the end of my career as a role player, it was like I knew I wasn't going to get mass touches. I was like, let me get 10 rebounds and 2 blocks, set some good screens, and the rest will take care of itself. Some nights I'm going to have 14, 15, 16 points. Some nights I'm going to have 6. So what? I can dominate the game in that way. That's what Humphries needs to be doing. But going to that post-game thing, quote, no one knows their role. No one has any idea what's going on. That's not good neither. So they're in a huge issue right now with culture, identity, behavior. Their best players are kind of walking off the plank. I don't know how they fix it.
And I don't think they do. I think our assessment prior to this great run of basketball they had was exactly this. This was with too many
high risk, high reward is what we said.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Too many egos, not enough ball, all this stuff. And Adelaide now, 5 coaches, 3 years. You can't just keep blaming the head coach.
At some point, it's not the coach.
Yeah, like every time something goes wrong, you can't just point your finger at the head coach. You know, so it'll be interesting to see. We know how like the 36ers operate as an organization. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of unfolds if the ship doesn't steady. But yeah, like from a player's perspective, you can't point the fingers at the coach anymore. There's got to be some accountability. And I think the reason they were playing good basketball to start off with is because Trez and these guys coming in fresh, they were just there to do their job initially. They didn't want to, ruffle feathers too quickly. Like, let's just come in and show these guys what I'm made of. And now you've established yourself. It's like...
Well, adversity, that's what we spoke about. That's
exactly.
I think we'll have to go back to the...
Verbatim.
Have to go back to the initial quad in the pod in the preseason, or even leading into it, was like, I like this team, but I think the smallest bit of adversity will be the test, because it'll either break completely, crack the hull of the ship, or they'll win a championship. There's no in between. They're not going to be like a grinded out, consistent second, third, or we got a bad week, but we're going to grind back up. They're not that. They're either first and they're going to win it, or they're 7th, 8th, a distant 8th. And it's a shame to see. There's some good plays. And I think the underrated loss out of all this was Sunday Dech. I think he's a glue guy for them, a guy that doesn't need the ball, a guy that is happy to lock down and actually get in the stance and play some defense and actually shooting the 3 ball quite well. He was a great complementary piece to DJ, to KD, to all those guys. I think his loss has been pretty heavy felt, but it just seems to be a common theme there. And there were talks about them re-signing KD. Harrell obviously extended after the injury thing. He was an injury exemption. He extended long term. There were rumors that he got an offer from Europe and he wants to go. Adelaide won't let him go. I don't know the truth is to that. That's what you hear, and that's why he's pissed off. Don't know if it's true, but something's not right. Their body language is horrible. They look like they don't like each other. Not look like it looks exactly like they don't like each other. I've been on those teams before, and now it's going to become a numbers game where guys are going to be like, you know what, we suck. Let me just get my numbers, and then that causes another domino effect of just continuing to lose.
Yeah, and it's like it's hard when the rest of the league is as competitive as it is. Like, you can't get away with dropping 2 or 3 games like that. That's the difference between being in 4th and being in 9th or 10th, you know? So it's like they're not going to have a lot of time to fix this. And if they are going to steady the ship and get back onto the track that they were on previously, it needs to happen like within a round or 2. Otherwise, they're going to miss the play-in.
Yeah, I spoke about it on telecast with John Casey and Derek Rucker. It's going to be interesting to see what 6th position needs for wins. I think it was 14 and 14 last season, I think it was. So that's 500. So that means Adelaide need basically to go. They need to win 7 more games out of the next 11 games they got left.
Yeah,
unlikely. But there is an argument that maybe right now 9 and 9 is in there, and it's super close. Maybe 13 does get in, or maybe even 12. Maybe that scrapes in with the way Brisbane have got some injuries. New Zealand are now. Everyone's going to load up on them, whoever plays them. So it's going to be interesting, but it's close. Illawarra and Melbourne, you got Illawarra at 13 and 5 and Melbourne at 13 and 8. And then you got Sydney right below them at 11 and 8. A big homestand for Sydney hopefully gives them a bit of a push to be at least 3, if not 2. Tassie are just playing really well, 11 and 8, but I still have some reservations about that Magnay loss. I think that'll hurt them if they don't get him back sooner rather than later. Perth, they're Jekyll and Hyde. They're either on and everything's clicking and they're going to put 120 on you, or they're going to lose by 30. So I don't know if that spells well for consistency going into finals and playoffs, but they are dangerous because if they do get hot in a plane, you could just be out in straight sets or even in a final series. I think that's harder to sustain in a 5-game series. Southeast Melbourne are the strange one. Do they make it? Do they hang on to that 6th spot? And then Brisbane, obviously, at least they're battling. You know, the Brisbane of old would have been down towards New Zealand and Cairns with some of the games they've had, but they've managed to fight their way in and grind some games out. So obviously put a line through Cairns and New Zealand, and I think Adelaide is probably a week away from getting a line put through them. So they got some work to do.
I think Josh Adams for Brisbane, like, people forget that the run that man went on when that
In the
1 year,
finals.
it was like something I had some of the shot making was just on a different level. So if
In
he
the
comes,
semi, right?
Yeah.
It was in the semi, right?
again, like upset United,
Yeah, and they
right?
played us.
Yeah, right. And it was like, no one had them picked.
Yeah.
So, and it was quite literally on his back. I don't think McVeigh was as established as of a player yet at that point. Like, it well and truly was
100%.
on Adams' back. So if he can come in form and they can maybe restructure the way they play offense a little bit, because like you said, it's very ISO heavy. If shots aren't falling, they're kind of dead in the water, and you saw that against Illawarra. Like, they're in it for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden they're out of it. I mean, Brizzy could very easily be a better team than Southeast Melbourne and Perth.
Yeah, and the percentage is roughly similar. Where was Josh Adams? I'm just looking it up. Last Marusi, Greece, averaging, for those out there, 8.3 points, 1.8 rebounds. Not great, but 25% from 3. So not great.
So maybe not the informed Josh Adams that we all remember, but
didn't play anywhere in 23-24. So injury, maybe an injury or something, because he was at Olympia and actually had a good year. He was 14.5 and 14 points, 3 rebounds, 45%, 36% respectively from 2 and 3, and then last season. So he must have had an injury, and now he's bouncing back. But I agree, it's a good pickup for their system. Like, they need an ISO guy, and yeah, with their loss of the other imports, and Prather playing the way he is, they could upset, they could scratch through, and I think they play each other. I think another time. I think Brisbane and Southeast Melbourne. So we'll watch that space. But that's all the NBL news. A lot going on. Things are heating up. Obviously, the new year then spells into the play-ins in another 5 to 6 weeks. So that'll be exciting, and we will continue to watch the NBA. So thanks for joining another episode of Road Bows, and we'll see you all next week.